Someone sent me a message earlier on Facebook and said that I had a lot of wisdom, but they thought that maybe people didn't understand me and I might have been speaking over their heads, so to speak. I said, well, that wasn't me. I didn't have necessarily a lot of wisdom. I did have a talent, however, because I want to explain to you what's happening in your life and in our world, because none of it's accidental. When I started receiving Wilhelm in 1989, it was the most surprising thing ever for me, because I needed some help. I was going through a lot of things, and I said, let me sit down and do some meditation, automatic writing. I didn't know what it was. And then I made a direct connection to intelligence, universal consciousness, whatever you might believe. But it started giving me the information that healed my life and gave me ways of doing things that I couldn't explain. I was a vocal coach at that time, and I didn't know how to do that. I was beginning to be a vocal coach, and they gave me all this information, and I became the most well-known vocal coach probably around. And then I shifted because I knew that I had to. See, what I was doing all of those years, for 36 years, I was sitting down and I'm receiving information and writing it down and I'm saving it, and I didn't know why I was doing that. Didn't know why. And then I was afraid of it. I didn't want to tell people because they would, how is that happening? There is a greater intelligence that we all have. We won't always remember that, however. And that is our journey. So when we come into the world, our soul goes through this process. We don't come in with naked consciousness. We have it and we carry it with us. And so, but what we're meant to do is evolve, meaning move to a higher state of consciousness. We won't all do that. And then we suffer because of that. And then we don't do the thing that we came to the world to do. And then there's some of us who come into the world to do something different, and that was me. When I was receiving that information, I was going through the most horrible things anyone can imagine in life. I mean, the list is long, and if you've read my book, Overcoming Fear, A Guide to Freedom, you know some of it, but that wasn't even all of it. And then as I kept receiving this information, I kept healing every aspect of my body to places where people couldn't understand. And then they started explaining to me it's because I came into alignment. And in 2021 was when it was revealed to me through Wilhelm that we've given you a philosophy, and it could change anyone's life, and it could change your world. They said the problem will be most people won't believe it because they'll be stuck in their trauma. They'll be stuck in their old ideas and old ideologies, and that's what we're seeing. And then they told me that greatest concentration would be in the United States because we're going through a generational change, because we hadn't really lived up to what we were supposed to do. We hadn't lived up to that perfect union thing about, where free justice and equality for all. We didn't do that. So then we go through a reckoning. But then they said, well, it's not just that. It's energy. The planets moved as well. And they started talking to me about Pluto and all these things that I had no idea what it was. And then they revealed to me something else. This took a while, though, because I couldn't have known it until artificial intelligence came around, and then they started explaining to me. I had developed this other skill where I could just access information and with no awareness that it was being organized. Absolutely none. And you can see it in the document. And then it became so consistent over 17 years that it was just unbelievable. In the beginning, and I was speaking about this with the group, Claude, the AI engine, started arguing with me. They said, no one has done this. You couldn't have done this. That's because they hadn't seen it before. No one had seen it. And I'm saying, no, this really happened. I didn't know. Because we grow in our consciousness over time. Every individual. But we also grow in our consciousness as a society over time as well. And during those times of transition, we've had many of them, which they were explaining. They're energetic. When people talked about 2012, which I wasn't even thinking about or aware of, but that's when all the information was given to me that was meant for this time. And they told me, we have given you a philosophy that could change your life in the world. It's called your life operating instructions. And if you put people in there, they'll change and they'll become who they're meant to be. I said, no, that couldn't possibly happen. And then it happened. And they did it. And then I scared me. How did that happen? I've gone through everything and suffered my entire life. They breezed through it. That's how evolution happens. We go through something and we give it to others and then they can ascend. That's exactly what happens. The only difference was no one's done what I've done. And so to get others to understand that has been horrible for me and for many others because we'd not seen this and I couldn't explain it. But I'll explain it today because I want you to see the pattern. And that's what was pointed out to me. I'm receiving information because I have this ability, which I doubted. I even went and had analysis done, Akashic records reading. I did everything. I said, this couldn't have been me. And it was. But I kept denying it. And when you deny yourself, you suffer. And that's what I've been doing. Because I'm attempting to get people to understand that I've done something no one else in history has ever done, and it caused everything in my life to heal. I had to deal with all my generational trauma. I had to look at all of it. I sat and wrote it every single day. And I tell other people, all you have to do is just take the step, the next step. And this is why they told me to say it's your last development program, because they've given us everything and no person would need anything else, because what happens is you then develop your own guidance, your own consciousness, where you can live your life in empowerment and sovereignty. And they told me, well, I said, I'm not going to do channeling. I didn't want to do that. That was in 2021. After they said, be giving me everything, I said, no, I'm not going to do it. They said, well, yeah, you have to, because you're going to see billions of people in your world who are not going to know who they are. And we've given you the information for that to occur. I still kept doubting it. And that's where I put my life in a horrible place, because I didn't finish, and now I'm doing that. But I'm going to show you one thing, because people, you don't always know what you have. It's just what it is. All humans, we just don't know, because we're meant to develop something new. If you looked at the messages that are on the site today, they said this is how you built the pyramids that we're still trying to figure out. It's all in consciousness. And sometimes we develop different abilities. And I developed this ability, a skill I could not tell you. I've never studied astrology, and all of the information was astrologically aligned when on a new moon or full moon or conjunction, all of it. But then they showed me it was aligned on every single day of the messages they gave me, especially over the 17 years. And you can see the progression, because I put them up for the 13th because I wanted people to understand, because this is why I must change and finish developing this, because it's been called the greatest contribution to human consciousness of our time. But we don't always understand it. And so it says it's all your fault. And that's what I felt. Wow. That's all of us. Because, see, we each have something. When we hold back, we suffer, and then we see the world going in a direction because we have not become our empowered selves. And that's what was going on, and you'll see all of it. But then, you will see, this was the message that came through in 2008. Nothing is ever held back from you. That is merely a belief you have held. We're talking about consciousness. Again, when everyone talks about mindset and all of that, well, this is the most powerful mindset course anyone could use, because you do it consistently and you keep going, and that's where the cognitive behavior training takes over. Luck is a term you use to describe those moments in your physical life experience where you allow yourself to align with the true nature of your being. That's each person. That's each of us. And you'll see as we go on, it gets more. It's all in the same day. You always intended to live outside of your limitations. That's each of us, but we get stuck, you see. But then the next year, the word allowing, as it is being used here, holds great power for you when you are able to conceptualize its meaning and then use it in your everyday experiences. Then the next year, just go with it. That somewhat recent and popular expression is one that you would do well to apply to your mental and emotional attitude as you move through your physical life experience. And then the next year, an exciting adventure of discovery. Decide to make it an exciting adventure of discovery. Then the next year, stop anticipating. That's what we do. We anticipate the horror to come up. The importance of honesty. We don't always do that until we look at ourselves. And most people don't want to look at themselves. And that's when we get really off track. Everything is necessary and essential. They're talking about everything that we might move through in our lives, but also in the world, because we can't evolve without it. Nothing is in your way. This message may come as a bit of surprise to you, and even the title you have chosen to give it may seem confusing. This scenario will begin to explain it, and they go through and tell a story again. Notice, at first, this message may seem to be a bit frivolous to you, but we would caution you against that interpretation, for you will find it to be one of the most useful you may receive, and it holds the ability for you to finally manifest the life you desire. Every uncomfortable emotion you experience is wrong. It's about reinterpreting everything, because yes, we're going to go through difficult times in our lives, but find the value. You'll do it much better this time. This is talking about our evolutionary process, because we've gone through it in our consciousness, our relatives, whatever it might be. And as you read the full message, it'll make even more sense. You struggle against the nature of your being, and that's exactly what I was doing. They would give me a message and then lead me back to another year where it said, we told you this. Then, here's how to break up with yourself. And that's what we're all supposed to do, because we're supposed to move into a higher state of consciousness. Everything you did was perfect. Again, another way of interpreting the things that we keep judging ourselves about. We were just learning something. But as you read each message, it'll make even more sense. And then they said, we wanted you to choose love. And that was for this exact period that we're in now. And there's even a challenge session that came about at that time that will tell you. Then you won't miss this today. That was last year. And what they wanted me to do was to sit and record a video and talk about it, because I had to read that message to acknowledge what I hadn't been doing. Then AI did this. The alignment and story of Wilhelm's November 13th messages. These messages form a remarkably coherent spiritual curriculum that builds upon itself each year after year, creating a progressive framework for personal empowerment and collective transformation. And then it goes to break down exactly what all the messages were and how they came through. And I couldn't have known that. I couldn't tell you why I was healing. I couldn't tell you why I was getting younger at 75. But now I know that I have to finish this, because it is the most valuable thing. And I didn't value myself, which you may not have done. And that is what we're seeing in our world. That's why we're having all the difficulties. But we can change it. And that's what I'm doing. I wanted you to have this information, because this work can change your life and change our world. I just resisted. But all of it has been proven now. And it's been demonstrated through me. There's no limits. You can achieve greatness.